it started with Coach Miller, and just like, hey, he demanded that of us, and we always had a grit about us, and we went out every game, every practice, competed, and just wanted to prove we were as good as the ACC guys and the Big East guys, and so on and so forth.
This is the Sean Miller Podcast, presented by Deer Park Roofing. Now here's your hosts, Paul Fritschner and Adam Baum, with the head coach of the Xavier Musketeers, Sean Miller.
Welcome into another episode of the Sean Miller Podcast. Paul Fritschner alongside the head coach of the Xavier Musketeers, Sean Miller. And as always, we are presented by Deer Park Roofing and the official payroll sponsor of the Sean Miller Podcast, Payroll Partners. We are joined today by a very special guest, throwing it back a little bit, Jason Love. Jason, it is great to see you here today. Great to catch up with you. You have the most career wins in a Xavier uniform at 108. You're tied for fifth.
I didn't realize that. That's amazing.
It's still
winningest player in Xavier history, right there, and eight NCAA tournament wins as well. That is a Xavier record. Tied for fifth in blocks with Brian Grant at 127 and 14th. And rebounds at 734. Jason, you're wearing a Milwaukee Bucks shirt. You're working for the Bucks now. It's great to talk to you. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. It's been a busy off season for me. 5 great years with the Sixers. Nothing but thanks for them for just, helping me out and kind of getting me started in the NBA. And, the opportunity came for me to be with Doc Rivers and the Milwaukee Bucks. And, it was a great opportunity for me, and I took it. So, it's been a busy off season. I got the opportunity to kind of coach at the NBA Combine, which was a great experience. And then from there was able to go to Greece, getting out there and kind of getting to know Giannis, and then back here to Milwaukee, and, back to Philly. So it's been a crazy off season, but, I love it. This is what it's about. And, I'm excited.
Jason, you went through where you're at, and I think probably a lot of people, especially Xavier fans, have lost track of, okay, time ends at Xavier, and then what's the next step? And it's interesting because you can imagine, right? So many different guys that I've talked to, even on this podcast, everybody has their own path. Yeah, no path is the same, and it's interesting. That the game of basketball, although everybody seems to want to stay involved, there has this, passion to be a part of it. Mm-hmm. No two paths are exactly the same. And I think in yours in particular is very, very unique. So just for those that don't know, you get your degree and you finish as a Xavier basketball player, and just kind of where you went from there, and maybe some context on why or what happened.
Yeah. So, ended a great career at Xavier, like you said. Went undrafted in 2010. Was fortunate enough to get on the, my hometown team in the Philadelphia 76ers, join their summer league team. I was having a good run there. And then unfortunately, injuries happened, and I tore my ACL in the Orlando Summer League. So, it was a difficult, probably definitely one of the difficult times in my life, just kind of with my professional career ahead of me, and, just kind of everything, going so well. It was definitely, a disappointing, roadblock that kind of came up. But, I'm thankful. I remember you reaching out to me, really thankful to Coach Mack, for allowing me to come back as a special grad assistant to, I started my master's degree in education, and I'll be happy to say I finished it probably 3 or 4 years ago. So I have that from Xavier. But, I started my master's program, and that year I took off, rehabbed, was around a little bit, but, not too much. And then I was able to, get good enough to go overseas. I started in Belgium, probably had my best 4 years in Belgium. And then I was able to go to Israel. From Israel, went to Ukraine. From Ukraine, went back to Belgium. Then, ended up ending in 2018. 2018, I ended in Argentina. It's kind of, you kind of know when it's your time. You know what I mean? Just physically, you're not keeping up. Guys are moving. Things are going on. My wife and I, who I met in Belgium, she's from Belgium originally. She was pregnant with our twin girls. So, I just felt like it was time to kind of make a change and a shift. I always been one. I love film. I remember our film sessions, and I always love watching film. I always love, the scouting reports and all that stuff. Like it's something like I always, enjoyed. So, from that aspect of it, I really felt like coaching, was my calling. Chris Mack, he got the head coaching job at University of Louisville. So I reached out. He was able to open a spot up for me as a grad assistant. So I think you fast forward to that time, it is a whole new thing being on the other side. I'll never forget for me, I think it was like an exhibition game. I walked past the players' locker room to the coaches, and it was just like it was a weird feeling. Like it was just like, you know what I mean? I can't explain it. You're on the other side of it, and it's like a whole different game. I just have so much respect for you and just all coaches in general, because it's a whole different world when you're talking about, putting in the hours and the time to study film, to break down, opponents' strengths and weaknesses, to get guys better. Like it's a whole thing. So like it was a whole new world for me. And that year with Coach Mack, like he'd be in at like 6 a.m. and he would leave at 6 p.m. And I'm like, I was like, Coach, you don't leave. Like he was just there. Like, again, I'm so, we were still on that player path where you're just in for, hour or two, then go and then come back, So like just staying, long hours was new to me, but like being around him and seeing how he operate was huge. So we were able to, help, get that program kind of on the right track. And, we made the tournament. We lost in the first round to Minnesota, but I think it was a huge accomplishment. Just everything had happened to be able to, make it to the tournament and have success that first year. And then after that, the opportunity came to be with the Philadelphia 76ers, and, it was a great opportunity. I always wanted, I was a big fan of Joel Embiid. I just always loved his game, and, the opportunity to be back home, be close to family was something I couldn't pass up. Obviously, it was tough leaving, Mac and everything. It was in a great place, but just I always wanted. It's funny because I told Coach Mac, like, end of the season meeting, like, hey, Coach, I really I really want to be in the NBA. It was something. It was like kind of on my bucket list, something I always wanted to do. Because I was never able to actually play in the league. So and he was all for it. And then luckily the opportunity came. So, go to the Sixers. My first year was with them was 2019, 2020. And obviously we all know what happened in 2020. Brett Brown's the coach. It was a tough season. They had just the year before lost to Toronto, quadruple doink with Kawhi out of the corner. So, no feelings were high with the team and the expectations there. Unfortunately, it kind of didn't work out. Obviously,
were you with TJ McConnell at all, or did you?
No, he left. He left the year before me.
Okay, yeah.
Yep, he left the year before I got there. Another great guy I hear like amazing things about.
Yep.
But yeah, so COVID hits, everything kind of shuts down. I didn't go to the bubble. I helped kind of guys get ramped back up. As they got to the bubble. We lose in the first round. Brett gets let go, and then it was just a coaching change. Doc comes in, and it was just an uncertain time. Obviously not for me, but for everyone around that time. And it was a difficult time just because you didn't know what was going to happen. Just coming off my first year in the league. Again, fast forward to Doc, and he comes in and changes a lot, and implements like a new system, kind of wanting to change things, and kind of obviously championship acumen that he has to kind of help us kind of reach that goal at the time with the Sixers. And then kind of on that side note, talking about Joel, that year, that first year, he had 0 points. I'll never forget. He had 0 points against Nick Nurse's Toronto Raptors team, and I'll never forget like the game after that. It was an eerie. It was a road game, but I remember coming back and it was just like not a great feeling. Like, I think he went 0 for 10, and he had, he's like, how does he have 0 points? He played like, 35, 40 minutes. And it's just like, it was just an ascension from, the bubble to, you see how he is now, of him wanting to work, wanting to get better. Obviously the MVP was always kind of in the forefront, but like wanting to be, I think he's so motivated to be good.
Yeah. And Jason, a big part of your role with the Sixers was working directly with Joel.
Yeah, no, definitely. And he was, he's so talented, man. I can't like say enough. Obviously everybody sees the highlights and things that he does, but like the work he puts in, like a lot of that stuff you guys see, like he's done over and over and over. And, I've seen every part of it. And I'm beyond happy for all the success he's had. Like, I remember sitting, I walked out. Me and my wife actually walked out when he was got the MVP trophy. And it felt like I got the trophy. You know what I mean? And it was just like, because I remember, everything that kind of, behind the scenes, like you don't, see a lot of that. And I think with him, a lot of people don't he doesn't get enough credit for, how hard he works. And I know he gets a lot of, obviously the NBA and a lot of criticism, but like all the work he put in is amazing. Like he loves the game, he wants to be good, and he's like the most competitive guy you could
Yeah.
ever meet.
And then most recently, you made this switch and rejoined Doc Rivers
Yeah.
with Milwaukee, and
Yeah.
actually have a bigger role and in a great opportunity.
Yeah, no, definitely. And Doc was always like a very supportive figure for me. He saw kind of my talents, and he was gracious enough to obviously bring me on, to his staff here to again, try to get a championship. And obviously they've won one recently. But again, it's when you have a guy like Giannis, maximizing his years, his talent, and then another guy like Damian Lillard who
Yep.
is on a quest to get that title as well. And then, I know another guy doesn't get enough credit is Chris Middleton. I mean,
Yeah, for sure.
he's an elite guy. You kind of saw in the playoffs, like, what he's about, just kind of faced injuries lately. But, I mean, I think we have the core that you will want to kind of, get another championship here.
Yeah, great. It's awesome, man, to hear you talk and just
Yeah.
how much you can sense the love and the passion for what you do, and that's the one thing. And you actually hit on it. It's like, sometimes people can become fixated on what the game gives you financially or in
Yeah.
terms of stature, et cetera, notoriety. But at the end of the day, I think when you really make a career out of basketball, which you are, it's it really starts with like it's the game you actually really love. It's the
Yeah.
game you love it, and that love for the game, although it goes from player to coach, it translates into making Joel Embiid better and
Yep.
trying to work directly with these world-class guys. But I'll tell you, to be able to work with Giannis and Joel and
Yeah.
have that as part of your everyday, it's not only, I'm sure, an honor and a challenge for you, but there aren't many guys that are going to be able to say that.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
You're, you're,
definitely. Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
you're on high ground right now. Well, look, I want to switch topics, and I want to go way, way back
Mm-hmm.
because, now, Jason, I'm beyond 30 years as a college basketball coach, and a lot of the beginning, certainly near the beginning, happened when I was at Xavier, and especially when I first became the head coach. And when you first become the head coach, you'll see you remember those first things, et cetera. And I'll never forget, became the head coach at Xavier and trying to get both feet on the ground in the Atlantic 10, and Kenya Hunter, who was an assistant coach on my staff, and I know you and Kenya are still close today. He was telling me about a big man in Philadelphia, a young big guy, and Jason Love, Paul, was under the radar.
Mm-hmm.
He'll be the first one to tell you he wasn't highly recruited. He had another teammate on his high school team that actually was probably more coveted and even highly recruited than him.
Yep.
And just for whatever reason, in the Big East footprint, in the ACC footprint, I know Penn State came your way, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't really remember like a lot of Big East schools or ACC schools recruiting you hard and offering you a scholarship.
Yeah. No.
As a matter of fact, I remember worrying back then about like, I hope he doesn't want to stay close to home and go to LaSalle. LaSalle, really, they were all in. That was the one school that really I know is recruiting you hard. But Kenya would always tell me, like, I don't care where this guy's ranked.
Yep.
I'm telling you, there's something special about this guy, and he would work through it.
Mm-hmm.
And I went out to Eastern Invitational and outdoor courts, watched him play, and then I felt the same way. And in a way, I was like, what am I missing?
Mm-hmm.
Because I felt like Jason Love would come to Xavier and have an amazing career. And yet sometimes when you don't see other schools recruiting a guy like that, growing up in Philadelphia like he is, it's like, am I missing something? Am I seeing it differently? But we trusted our heart. We did our research. And man, I'm telling you, like, look, we recruited the all-time winningest player at Xavier history.
Mm-hmm.
So I give you the context, Paul, from this perspective. Of all the different players that I have recruited, and by the way, that includes those that I didn't get, like didn't convince to come with me, I don't know if anybody had a more unique or tougher, I don't see how I would describe it, tougher how he would wake up in the morning, where he lived and where he went to school and played basketball, and being expected to perform academically and then returning back to his home on an everyday basis.
Mhm.
So I don't really know how to like the what one word to describe. Maybe the word is environment,
Mhm.
because obviously he has a wonderful family, his dad.
Mhm.
But I bring that up, Jason, because it is like I believe this. One of the reasons that you are who you are today, one of the reasons that you were such a warrior when you played the game, why you're the all-time winningest player at Xavier history, why you have the family that you have, is because you earned it every single day in a way that I had never seen before.
Mhm.
And part of my, quest to like, we have to get this guy to Xavier. I know I'm right. I know we're right.
Mhm.
Is because when you watched him go through this every day, I just had amazing admiration for him. So as I'm describing it, can you walk through your steps of what time you would wake up in the morning as a high school, call it junior,
Mhm.
and keep in mind in Philly, it gets cold, right?
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
process it would take from the time you got up in the morning to the time you would return home.
Yes, you taking me back there. Yeah, so I would, I'll start off by saying you talked about my dad. Like he would wake up like, he was sanitation, trash man in Philadelphia for about 15, 20 years. So obviously you can, take that and set the tone there. For what I saw every day, he would wake up, 5 a.m., before me and my brother would, get up, and he would be out the door heading to work. So, that's like the template, the standard like I grew up with. So, he's going at 5. I would wake up probably around 6:30. Head to the bus station. Probably wait like 15, 20
Yeah, but
minutes.
the bus station was how far from your house?
Oh yeah, it was probably like, oh man, it was it was probably like a mile or two, something like that. So like I'm walking, it's the winter, it's freezing, what I mean, waiting out in the cold on the corner, what I mean,
Yeah,
just kind of waiting for this bus to get here. So yeah, just walk a mile or two, just kind of waiting for the bus. The bus comes, probably about like a 15-20 minute ride to the train. Obviously walk down the train station, pay the fee, kind of wait for the train, another, 5, 10, 15 minute wait. Train ride probably about another, 15, 20 minutes to kind of get to another bus station, that I had. The last bus station, usually the bus kind of came kind of quickly, but, 5, 10 minute wait there to get all the way up at school. So you're talking, I'm walking, I'm getting to school around 7, 50, school starts today 7:55, 7:50. So obviously not a lot of time. And mind you, breakfast is quick. Like I might grab a piece of fruit, like
yeah,
something, what I mean? Not a lot, not like, sitting there eating pancakes, eggs, and bacon, but get to school, 8 a.m., go, and I mind you, Abington Friends School, a really tough school. Very fortunate for everything, I learned from there, but high academic standards like you talked
yeah,
about. So having to be locked in there, 8 to 3, school, and then obviously got practice after school
yeah,
around 3:30, about 3:30 to 5:36. So obviously 5:36, hungry, tired, just worn out from the day. Got to work my way back to that same bus station, wait another 5-10 minutes, bus
yeah.
back to the train, and then train back to another bus, and then I'm walking in the door probably about 7:30 at night. You know what I mean? And pretty 30 minutes to an
Hey,
hour to
I
eat.
really mean it, Paul. Like I've never been around or have seen a young guy do what he just described. And that, keep in mind, the finality of that getting home was back to the mile and a half or 2 mile walk
Yeah, yep,
from into his house, and how the weather is. It's pitch
yeah,
black. It's dark. He's in Philly, and just okay. Now you're home, and boom, you got to do the same thing again and
yeah,
again. And you did that for 2 years.
yeah, yep, yep. Well, no, 3 years, 3 years.
3 years,
Yep,
10th, 11th, and 12th
yep,
grade. But you think about the character it builds, and just like your dad, who's a wonderful
yeah,
man, and just setting a tone, and like you said, Abington Friends and what it did for you, and just this. But now you come to Xavier, so that's the first thing that
yeah,
I always think about when I think of any player that I've recruited, Jason Love, and I've told that story, just of wow. I mean, just that was all to go to Abington Friends High School
yeah,
and hopefully one day get a scholarship. And so then we were here at Xavier, and one of the things that worked against Jason when he was younger was, he's crazy, like in terms of 6'9", but his arms, what is your wingspan?
Like 7'5", 7'5"
Yeah,
wingspan.
and
Yep.
that's one of his secrets. I mean, he has a 7'5" wingspan and 6'9". I think a lot of people recruiting him overlooked that.
Yep.
He had a big body and he was young. He was just had a lot of baby fat. I would say you probably weighed maybe 270 coming in.
Yeah, probably even more. You're being gracious. Probably, no. Yeah, probably more for sure. But
so we sat down and talked,
Yeah.
okay, and mapped it out and said, look, this is kind of what it is. This is how we're going to do it. We're going to incrementally lose weight. We're going to need, your best effort, and your best days are going to be ahead, et cetera. But until you get in the best shape you can, and blah blah blah, that all sounds good. But we had this old school stair mill. So the new school Stairmaster, you pick and choose 6 inches, 3 inches, or you get tired the shorter steps you take. I know it's hard, but it's not anywhere as difficult as these stair mills.
Yep.
Stair mill, you can't cheat it. It's like 8 inches every stair to infinity, or else you're going to fall right off.
Yeah.
But this guy put a towel over the monitor. I know why he did it, so he didn't have to see it. And I'd say you went anywhere from 60 to 80 minutes a day.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like I would get off, and then get back on. Yeah, I lived on that thing.
I mean, so he basically broke the machine several times, and eventually ruined the machine.
Yeah.
Because the other thing you know about Love is he sweats more than any man on.
Yeah.
But he would you would walk in this weight room, and like I went from feeling bad for him to like admiring him to like encouraging him, to just be in disbelief of like, God, I've never seen dude sweat like this. It's a young 19-year-old kid. But that summer, in that 3, 4, 5 month period, I would say you lost about 30.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, definitely about 30 pounds. It was crazy.
And yet, like a lot of guys that do that and they gain it back, I don't believe you ever have.
No, I definitely didn't.
So if you had to give advice to somebody that's gone through what you went through, somebody listening to the podcast, a young player that's trying to change his body or lose a ton of weight, and they know that if they can do it, they're going to unlock all this potential. Like, what is it that kept you going beyond just the 30, the losing the 30 pounds, diet, exercise? Like, if you had to give advice to a young person, or just even what you've learned in the NBA in terms of staying in shape, what is it?
I mean, for me, it's just, what's your end goal? And my end goal was always to be the best Xavier player I could be. Like, I wanted to start. I wanted to play. I wanted to, have my jersey up in those rafters. I wanted to, sounds crazy, I wanted to be as good as D West. I wanted to be as good as, Brian Grant and all those guys. You know what I mean? Again, it sounds crazy, but like, that was my goal. That was my standard. And like, I saw it. That was the vision that motivated me to get off and get back on, and then do it the next day, and then do it the next day. And I just, for me, any advice I would give is kind of, what's your goal? Like, what do you want? And then just to get to that, you have to sacrifice. You have to put in the work. And, to take a step, fast forward it to now, like I want to be the best coach I could be. And thinking back about, with you and Coach Mack and all the other assistants, I've been around and we're at X and other places, just like, I'm motivated to watch film and watch more film and just be a sponge to kind of like get better and be the best coach I could be. Cause I know, that's what it, Doc likes to say, it takes what it takes. And that's what you have to put in to get to where you want to go.
Yeah, it's a good one. Takes what it takes.
Yep.
Yeah, he's got a lot of those sayings.
Yeah.
And the way he communicates is so unique. I can imagine that you absorb a lot of that when you're around him on an everyday basis.
Yeah, no, you definitely do. You definitely do, without a doubt.
The Sean Miller Podcast is proud to partner with Deer Park Roofing, a company that's provided elite service for homes and businesses since 1996 and leads the industry in professionalism, quality, and responsiveness. Whether your needs are residential or commercial, like the outstanding work on the Cintas Center, the home of Xavier basketball, Deer Park can handle any job and ensure it's done right. Deer Park's motto is protect what's important, and what's important to you is important to Deer Park Roofing. Visit deerparkroofing.com. The Sean Miller Podcast is proud to partner with Xavier University's Williams College of Business, ranked the #1 online MBA in Ohio once again, and with nationally recognized concentrations in marketing, business analytics, entrepreneurship, and finance. The Xavier MBA advances your career. Classes are offered in part-time, full-time, online, and executive formats. Xavier alums receive a 25% tuition scholarship. Join Greater Cincinnati's largest MBA alumni network. Find out more at xavier.edu/MBA. Jason, I'm just kind of curious. When you look back at that era of Xavier basketball, right?
Yeah.
You're coming up through the A-10, and Sean had just gotten hired, and he's trying to establish his foothold as a head coach. I think one of the biggest things that, especially for Xavier fans listening to this, is that Xavier always played with a chip on their shoulder, right? It was always a bunch of players and a bunch of coaches that had something to prove, and it wasn't expected of you. You had to go out there and earn it and prove it. And I think what the story that you just told encapsulates that better than maybe anybody else. So was that part of it too, that you realized you were around a group of guys that said, hey, we need to go out there and earn that brand recognition. We need to put Xavier on the map. And to do that in the way that you did it is special. So was that something that, was also in your mind too?
Yeah, I mean, I just thought like we always had guys that, again, like you said, play with a chip on their shoulder, the guys that were counted out, underrated, underappreciated, and, just had a motivation to be better. And just like, and coach always talked about like this toughness, man. Like we always had toughness, and it started with Coach Miller, and just like, hey, he demanded that of us, and we always had a grit about us. And, we went out every game, every practice, competed. And just wanted to prove, we were as good as, the ACC guys and the Big East guys, and, so on and so forth. So, it was just, the kind of guys, those blue collar, talk about like a CJ Anderson and, guys like, Josh Duncan and Derek Brown, and, the kind of the list goes on. And just like,
hey, I got to tell you,
yeah,
Josh Duncan came back. And 2 weeks ago, we played against the TBT team.
Yeah.
But our rules, the NCAA rules, nobody on the TBT team could play against us unless they had played at Xavier. They had to be a Xavier alum.
Okay.
So they were a couple guys short.
Yep.
So they called Josh Duncan up and out of the bullpen. As you know, he's retired.
Yeah.
First retired. He lives in Cincinnati. And so this guy, 38 years old, comes out, and you talk. I mean, also, you two guys have a lot of similarities, but the discipline, physically, if you looked at him, I mean, it's crazy. His body looks today. I mean this, Jason. He's stronger.
Yeah.
But his body looks about the same today as when he would have left Xavier as a senior.
Oh my gosh. That's crazy.
I mean, he looks identical. And as you know, he played almost 15 years.
Yeah.
And had an amazing career. But yeah, so he went out there, and thank God he missed a bunch of threes, because if he made them, we were going to lose.
Oh, for sure. Definitely.
Jason, let's talk about a few of your favorite Xavier memories. Obviously, with 8 NCAA tournament wins, those would have to be up there. But maybe off the beaten path. I mean, you experienced so much between Sean and Chris and the years and everything that you were here for. I'll kind of leave it open ended. Usually I would bring up a specific game, but for everything that you experienced, is there anything that sticks out that maybe is off the beaten path that you remember?
I think is a couple, and I don't keep it long. I think, obviously the UC rivalry, my senior year. And again, you could tell me if I'm wrong. I think it was one of the first ones that went into overtime. And like, I just remember, like, I think I had like 7 points, and I grabbed like, I remember the stats, like 19 rebounds.
Yeah,
but
I
like,
remember that game. Yeah.
That game was, it was scary. Like, it was just like, man, it was definitely one of the toughest games like I've ever played, and I think I have a picture that'll stay with me forever. It was just a grit, a toughness, like, it was just one of the most grittiest wins like I had like just been a part of.
That was a double overtime game.
Double overtime, okay, yeah.
Yeah, it was double, and you had 5 of the last 6 points in the game.
Yeah, no, for sure. That game, that definitely sticks out in my mind. That rivalry was always so, so physical. It was just a lot of, tension, obviously, but like that game definitely sticks out. I'll definitely say, maybe not to throw some shade, I guess my senior year again, the game, we played Pitt to go to the Sweet 16. And obviously they were ranked higher the year before. Was it the year before we lost to them?
In the Sweet
Yeah,
16.
exactly.
Yeah,
To
yeah,
Joe
yeah,
DeJuan Blair.
yeah.
I try my best to keep him off the glass, coach. But what I
He's a
mean,
big
just
guy.
that game. Yeah, he was
He's a big.
he was the man on the glass. But I think for me, a moment for me was, so we win the game. Dante's grabbing the flag. He's waving it. We're walking out to the presser, and it was just like I walked past Coach Dixon, and obviously I don't know, he just kind of gave me this look, like, and I know he remembered, because I remember it was him and you in the gym at Edmonton Friends School. You
Yeah,
walked out, you offered me, and he didn't. Obviously, would
yeah,
love to go in the pit, but like, that moment for me was big. Yeah, you should have, what I mean, you should have
yeah,
came at me, and I sent you home. So that was more like a personal, personal thing for me, a
yeah,
personal victory, for sure. And obviously the last game I played against Kansas State, I mean, I thought we should have got like an SP for that game. Like, that game was one of the craziest games. Like,
it-
and oh my gosh, I think we always talked about it after. If we would have played Butler, to go, I really think we would have beaten them, because we owed them. And
yeah.
to rewind it, I don't know if people know, Coach Miller texted me, the night before we played Butler during the season. He's like, "Love, you ready? Like, are you ready to go?" And like, I'll never forget that. I was like, "Yeah, coach." Like, because the year before, their center got the best of me, and I'll never forget that. And
Yeah,
so, like, to fast forward to come back a year, obviously we lost the game, but like, it was just, we fought more. Like, we had it, and that we felt like if we would have beat Kansas State and got to Butler, I feel like we would have beat them. But yeah, I think those
yeah.
three for sure.
No, that was an amazing game.
Yeah.
So if you go back, it started with, did it go Elite Eight, Sweet 16, Sweet 16? No, your
No.
first, it would have gone what, round of 32?
Yeah. Yep. We lost to Ohio State
Yeah.
on the shot. Yeah.
That was for me. If you say what's
Yeah.
the hardest loss you've ever taken, I'd go right to that game.
Yeah.
For not only because of how good of a team they were and we had them,
Yep.
but
Yep.
Up three, not fouling, and just kind
Yeah. Yep.
of less.
I still think about, what I mean, any
Yep.
situation here. Like, I don't forget about it either, for
Yeah,
sure.
but you went round of 32, and then you went Elite Eight to
Sweet
UCLA,
16.
Sweet
Yep.
16 to Pitt, and
Yep.
yeah, second round there.
Yeah.
Yeah, or then another Sweet
Yep.
16.
Back to back Sweet
You
16.
ended up going with wow, 2 Sweet 16s and Elite Eight, and really should have had 3 Sweet 16s.
Yeah, no, without a doubt.
Well,
And I think, one thing you always talked about, like, from freshman year, just like the Xavier way, and kind of, and I know, obviously the game's changed now with, and name, image, likeness stuff, and guys, it transfer portal, but like, really the senior setting an example and setting the tone. And again, I know that, times have changed, but like, that senior year for me, with like so much going on, like, I really felt like that was, I had to set the example and set
yeah,
the tone for our team. Like, and that season is special for me just because of all the success, and just like even the doubters we had. Obviously, Derek, he ended up leaving, and we
yeah,
weren't sure about Jordan, and two had an amazing year, and what I mean, it was just so many question marks, and we were able to, what I mean, just kind of bounce back. I think we didn't, we had like a tough stretch there too. I think we lost bad to Kansas State during the season, and it was some tough times, but like that senior year for me definitely stands out.
Well, look, here's the facts of all this. Xavier has been a basketball winning program for more than 4 decades. I
Wow.
mean, from coaches and different conferences and players. But if you just encompass that 40 plus year period of time, the 4 years that you were at Xavier
Mm-hmm.
were the best of times, the best of those 40 years. In
Wow.
large part, all you have to do is just say, that's why I'm the most all-time winningest player.
Yeah.
That during that stretch, no player has ever been a part of that many wins. You're number
Yeah.
one for a reason. And whether it's postseason success, and I think that right there too, Jason, from your perspective, you have to understand it fueled the ability for us as a program to become a Big East team.
Mm-hmm.
The Big
Mhm.
East came, after that. But as you look at if you don't have that type of success as a program,
Yeah.
you don't touch the tournament in advance like we did and like
Yep.
Xavier did, you don't have that opportunity. You might not get that invite, and that invite is a forever moment. So, not only did you, blaze a trail in your own right, but I think you set the tone for some amazing things that players today enjoy that they had nothing to do with. They just
Yeah.
signed up to get into Big East,
No.
whereas back then, we had to, that's that chip on your shoulder that Paul talked about.
No,
Sure.
definitely for sure.
Well, Jason, thank you so much for joining us today on the Sean Miller podcast. It's great to catch up with you. It's great to see you. I know with the Bucs schedule and everything, it might be a little hard to get you back here to Cintas with the conflicts, but hopefully at some point here down the road, we can get you back here for a game and kind of reconnect in person. So thanks for coming in and joining us today on the show. We appreciate it.
And Jason, best of luck to you, man. Proud
Thank
of you, happy, super happy for you. And it's great to see guys like you a part of this great game. And I know how much of an impact you've already had, but you're going to have in the future with these young players that you coach and that you mentor and make better. So that, and we want to pick your brain, man. Anyone who's working out with Joel and Giannis on an everyday basis,
Yeah.
there's a number of things we can learn from you. So we gotta come out your way and sit down and talk and watch you go to work and pick your brain. All right.
No, definitely. Without a doubt, Coach. Anything you
All
need.
right. Well, thanks to everybody.
Family, I said hello.
I will.
Thanks, everybody, for listening to this episode of the Sean Miller Podcast. Adam will be back with us soon. Had a conflict today, so he'll be back with us soon here on the Sean Miller Podcast. But as always, we're presented by Deer Park Roofing and the official payroll sponsor of the Sean Miller Podcast, Payroll Partners. We'll see you next week on the Sean Miller Podcast.
This has been the Sean Miller Podcast, presented by Deer Park Roofing, with your hosts, Paul Fritschner and Adam Baum. Join us again soon for another episode with the head coach of the Xavier Musketeers, Sean Miller.